Good morning, and welcome to the Black Mesa Transit System.
Say you want to know what Half-Life 1's like, but you can't be bothered to play it. I did it for you, took 5.5 hours. The game starts with this famous train ride down into the heart of the Black Mesa facility. I didn't play the game when it first came out because I wasn't allowed a PC, but maybe that helped me to appreciate the significance of this game. Before this point, games comprised of corridors filled with enemies to shoot. I always longed to have friendly NPCs, or at least ones who weren't trying to kill you. Unscripted scenes were something of a luxury before this point. Yet here Half-Life was, adding them to almost every room. It's nice that they throw people into most of these scenes to let you get a sense of scale with these environments. Here it says that Gordon Freeman is 27. I always saw him as older than me, and that's why he's such a genius. Now he's younger than me, and I'm wondering how he became such a genius at that age. I almost missed him, but you can see the G-Man watching you from this train carriage. You'll notice him a lot throughout this game, peering down at you from balconies and such.
Stand back from the automated door.
I always thought this was Barney, who you see return in Half-Life 2, but apparently the real Barney is the one you see at the very start of the train sequence, and the rest of them are just security guards, which explains why they can all die in such horrible ways when they're in my company. Spoiler alert.
Morning, Mr. Freeman. Looks like you're running late.
Yes, he's making the beeping sounds with his mouth. Even though you're free to explore for as long as you like, there's a sense of urgency and foreboding. First in the fact that you're late for work, and second because there's been some kind of system crash that morning that they're recovering from. Oh, and third there's an experimental test that you're about to take part in, which is making the scientists nervous. I got stuck in the wall in this scene and had to no-clip out.
Hey, Mr. Freeman. I had a bunch of messages for you, but we had a system crash about 20 minutes ago, and I'm still trying to find my files.
My God,
stop
what
that.
are you doing?
Come on, Gordon. You trying to get me into trouble?
You can see the G-Man speaking to a scientist in this room, but it's unclear what it's about. There are lovely little touches like getting cans from the vending machines and blowing up the food in the microwave, which upsets a scientist.
My God, what are you doing?
The names around the locker room are from developers who worked on the game.
Ah, hello, Gordon Freeman. It's good to see you.
This is where you get your HEV suit, allowing you to pass on through to the test chamber.
Welcome to the HEV Mark Protective System.
You head down a series of corridors and elevators until you get briefed on today's scientific test, and it's clear they're pushing the machine too far, and there's a very slight chance of a catastrophic resonance cascade event happening.
Ah, Gordon, here you are. We just sent the sample down to the test chamber.
We've boosted the anti-mass spectrometer to 105%.
This should shake our hands.
It's about to go critical. It wasn't meant to be this in the first place.
Gordon, we have complete confidence in you.
Gordon!
No! Attempt to shut it down!
So, the disastrous resonance cascade event has occurred, and you've got to retrace your steps through Black Mesa to reach the surface in search of help. Of which the scientists are sure is coming.
God for that hazard suit. Get to the surface as soon as you can and let someone know we're stranded down here.
This is when you have your first encounters with the enemy aliens who have teleported into this world. Though it's kept easy. The first time you see one, it can't get to you. The second time, it's easy to run past, and so on. After some laser dodging, you get your crowbar for the first time, and then it's up the lift shaft to face your first zombie. But at least for now, you have help from a security guard. I say help, but the number of times these guys shot me throughout this campaign, I started to wonder whose side they were on. Valve realised that players liked friendly NPCs, and began to appreciate their company. So much so that they'd end up feeling bad if these NPCs died. But he had a gun and I needed one, so... There are some awesome scripted events in these first few levels. I'll showcase a few of them here as they perfectly show the stages of a headcrab attack and how it transforms people into zombies. I'm hoping that Half-Life Alyx will depict the same thing in some way. As a child, these levels were pretty creepy. Injured guy crawls towards healing station but doesn't quite get there, but it does at least point the player to it and hints at its function. I always saw this as a sad story of the guard not quite getting there, but looking back at it, this kind of intuitive tutorial was ahead of its time, in an era when most games would just drop you in a level and expect you to get on with it. It's the same easy, slow building approach that they've also done with Half-Life Alyx. Only with that game they've received criticism for dumbing the series down for novices. Oddly enough, nobody seemed to notice back here in Half-Life 1. So now you have to fight against hound eyes, which rush towards you and let off damaging shockwaves unless you kill them quickly. And just a few rooms on, you encounter your first Vortigaunt, who are actually friendly, but are controlled by a suit that they wear that forces them to attack Gordon.
No! I don't want to die!
You go into the pipes to raise the water level, go on a dank funicular ride where you get attacked by dozens of headcrabs, in a sequence that's perhaps more comedic than it has any right to be. If you think that headcrabs are a bit sexual, there's a reason for this. Gabe Newell thought that these kinds of creatures would be the sort of monsters that adolescent boys would be disgusted by. The end. In the next room you encounter your first bull squid, which has enough time to spit acid at you before collapsing the walkway and falling to its death down the pit below. But just through the vents you come across another one in a large room and must shoot it from a distance. And you can make out your first barnacle monsters dangling from the ceiling. You next have to swim through this water, so shooting them now will make it just that little bit easier later on. These barnacle monsters suck you up and then chew on your face unless you shoot them in time, in which case they drop you instead. This first encounter has been made easier in two ways. Firstly, the ceiling is very high, so you have plenty of time to shoot them if they get you. And second, since they're above water, when they drop you after they've been shot, you won't sustain fall damage. Get through that room, and you'll finally get to this. I'll just let it be known that the movement in Half-Life 1 is more slidey than in your modern games, which makes these kinds of platform sequences more difficult. What kind of place is Black Mesa? Here, your first goal is to disable the electricity to let you safely pass down the corridor. I'll skip through this chapter quickly because although it's full of awesome moments, it doesn't really do anything new. It's the same enemies and mechanics as before, only with added electricity and choppy fan blades. It's also more darkly lit to encourage you to use your flashlight. As you progress, you encounter pockets of scientists and security guards who will follow you if you want them to. You also get to watch them interact with the more advanced enemy types, like the barnacles, which is always a bit of fun. Electrified water encourages you to jump from table to table, which is fun. And headcrabs litter the vent systems for cheap scares. They get you even if you're ready for them, and every time they do, they sap your health by a few points. One new encounter are these weapon turrets. Something I don't like much is the shotgun in this game. Sometimes it'll deal good damage, other times it'll miss completely. As soon as you reach medium distances it becomes useless. It certainly encourages you to charge towards them, which leads to faster paced combat than in the sequel. Honestly, this level became a bit of a maze, and there were a few stairwells that looked very similar, and I ended up getting a bit lost. The next new mechanic is even slipperier ground in the freezer room, which you clear out with a security guard and then have to complete a puzzle which involves flipping a switch, then scaling the cabinets and hopping across a moving platform. Very 90s. Something this game did better than Half-Life 2 was its sound design. I love the reverb in these vents. Then I accidentally killed a friendly guard when trying to explode this body.
Stop attacking immediately.
Then I got killed on the slowest moving fan blade ever, and I had to redo a large portion of this level. That's why you quick save regularly in older games. I was out of the habit when I started, but it had returned by the time I got halfway through this one. At the end of the level you see the G-Man through this door, fight some zombies in this corridor, then climb a more difficult lift shaft as a poor scientist slips to his death.
For God's sake, open the silo door! They're coming for us! It's our only way out! Oh my God, we're doomed!
You head towards the surface and meet the military that's been sent to find you. You first encounter trip mines and tripod turrets, which are activated if you trigger a beam. Also, this is the point the game stops trying to be fair with headcrabs and begins spawning them into existence behind you from time to time. And Vortigons too. And again. Yeah, you get the idea. It's like this for the rest of the game now. So after clearing a series of rooms straight from Mission Impossible, and spotting the G-Man up in the rafters again, you finally meet the army. But, to your horror, they're trying to kill you. They're trying to kill everybody. They're there to destroy any evidence of the resonance cascade, and that includes you. You battle your way through room after room of these people. In each, they're executing scientists and running about chucking grenades everywhere. It leads to some fast-paced action that certainly still has appeal, though you're unlikely to clear a room without sustaining quite a bit of damage. You finally make it to the surface, have another large fight, and then I got randomly blown up by something and had to do it again. This time I rushed to a bunker and got crushed by some falling debris. The next time I survived this and got to see them awesomely abseiling down into the abyss, firing as they went. The rest of this chapter is spent skulking around, getting lost in vent systems and listening to them gloating about how many scientists they've killed.
I killed 12 dumbass scientists and not one of them fought back. This sucks.
Security material.
You finally meet a scientist who explains what's going on.
Well, so much for the government. Their idea of containment is to kill everyone associated with the project.
And then you head on down to the blast pit. This is probably my favourite part of the game. Having spent the game so far climbing towards the surface, you now descend down, down, down into a seemingly abandoned part of the complex. You hop on a train carriage and plough through some enemies, and then you are launched off across a toxic lake. You have to walk along a series of pipes until you happen upon a gigantic concrete structure, inside of which is another concrete structure. It's massive. And then the banging starts.
Destroy the damned thing before it grows any larger. Stop! No! 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 Get it off me! Get it out! Get it out!
It turns out this massive creature cannot see, but it has excellent hearing, so you've got to creep through the room that it's in without making a noise, which is made infinitely more difficult by the ladders, because this is a Valve game, and so ladders are as fiddly as balls. And you've got to clear barricades using grenades, all the while dodging the semi-random attacks from the thing's claws. In short, where that thing is the hub, from which you go on missions to activate the power, fuel, and oxygen. The first one I did was at the top of a perilous climb, terrorised by a rogue horizontal lift. It got me once, but I reached the top, whereupon I found a scientist who was hiding for his life.
This is my hiding spot, and I'm not leaving until the situation is... Oh dear!
I activated the power and left him to it. Then I had to creep through the blast pit again without making a sound. The next mission involved activating a fan. This level made me realise I suffered from megalophobia. The fan, once activated, blew me up against the ceiling and I smashed my way through into the vents. After clearing a room of zombies, I could turn on the oxygen and fuel. I then made my way all the way back to the control room at the beginning and activated the rocket. Then fell down the hole that was left behind. Down here I got the revolver, which is an extremely powerful and useful gun against later enemies. I went through some pipes. Got supplies from crates. I'll continue this in a second video, but I'd like to see what kind of feedback this video gets first. Anything I should change? Should I go faster or slower? Are you happy with the other Half-Life games also being covered like this? Let me know in the comments section, and don't forget to smash that like button. Yeah.